Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talkin' Track. I'm Big Play Sports Ryan Stillman, and with me, as always, is my incredible co-host, Aaron Halterman of Racing Dudes. Aaron, how are you feeling after the most epic weekend we have seen on the Derby Trail?
Yeah, you feel excited after last week. There's no doubt about it. We saw some awesome performances. We're going to talk about a lot of them. We're going to talk about a little bit of what's coming up this week as well. You have an excellent interview on the show. I feel like this one might be the best one we've done because of that interview and because of everything we're going to talk about. So I'm pumped, man.
Yeah, you guys aren't going to want to miss this. I sat down with a pedigree expert. We dissected 3 of the top Kentucky Derby hopefuls' pedigrees. We have some hot takes. We have swiping with my sister. You know what? We have so much to jump into. Let's just get to it, Aaron. The first thing we want to do, guys, is a new segment called Bet or Pass. I'm going to throw Derby hopefuls at Aaron. There are ones that have raced last weekend, and he's going to tell me whether he's betting them or passing on them for the Kentucky Derby. Let's start with journalism. Is he a bet for the Derby for you?
Yeah, right now he's the favorite, in my opinion. I think he's the one they all have got to beat. Just a very, very impressive San Felipe victory over Barnes. Barnes had everything his own way. Journalism still able to get the job done. It was so impressive. So he's a huge bet for me right now. If they ran it today, he'd be my top pick.
I love hearing that. I would agree too. He's scary, Aaron. We'll probably get to him a little bit more on the show too. Let's talk about the runner up for you. Controversial bet for you. Tell me why.
Yeah, look, I think when you kind of look at Barnes, it's a situation where yes, he did finish second. Yes, there wasn't a whole lot of excuse, but imagine if journalism wasn't in the race. We would be saying, "Wow, Barnes stretched out to 2 turns for the first time. He ran a 105 buyer and he beat Rodriguez by like what 10, 11 links. Like this guy's unbelievable." But since journalism was in there, a lot of people are kind of off on Barnes. I still think he's playable. I still think he's a bet. We're going to learn more about him in his next start. For right now, though, I'm not too down on Barnes. I thought he did just fine.
No, like it's like the only thing he did wrong was run into apparently a superior racehorse.
Yeah.
That's how I view it. The thing with me, Aaron, though, is I'm just having trouble making enough excuses to see him turn the tables. I really felt Barnes had everything going his way. Journalism had everything go against him coming into that. But I'm with you. I'm not fully off Barnes. Wouldn't be shocked. Journalism can always bounce too, guys. That was a big performance. How do you feel about Sovereignty, a bet for you for the Kentucky Derby?
Boy, this one feels pretty darn good. This feels like Sierra Leone, like to me, a horse that was third in the Kentucky Derby and, of course, went on to win the Breeders' Cup Classic. We talked about it. We love Sovereignty, but we didn't love him for that specific race on Fountain of Youth Day there at Gulfstream Park. And he still was able to win, even though everything we kind of talked about happened and it was all kind of going up against him. And it's like, hey, if he runs a good second here down the stretch, that's a great start. But he gets all the way up and wins the race. Are you kidding me? He's going to move forward immensely well off of this race. He's going to get better and better. He is a closer that is going to have a little bit of trouble. But yeah, this is another one I want to use the Kentucky Derby, a big time bet for me in the Derby.
Yeah, super impressive. Another horse. Now, we kind of lost in the shuffle. There was a third race this weekend, the Gotham over in New York. Flood Zone, better pass for you.
Flood Zone really surprised me. I'll just start with that. I thought he could win the race. I wasn't shocked that Flood Zone was able to win, but he was pretty impressive. He has a pedigree that says he's going to stretch out and be fine going longer than a mile, which is what the Gotham was. He's like a maybe underneath. He's a bet. I'll be specific, but maybe he's more of like that trifecta, superfecta horse that might be 20 or 30 to 1. And you look up and go, wow, that horse got up and got third or fourth. That's kind of what I'm looking at with Flood Zone. I'm not like completely sold that he's like some kind of star or he's going to win, but I think he's a bettable horse as of right now at this moment underneath something like that. We'll see him again. We'll see him stretch out in distance, and that'll really tell us. But as we're sitting there right now, I don't hate Flood Zone. He was not too bad in that race.
No, I'm with you, Aaron. I actually feel like that's the kind of horse that you see hit the super in the Derby or a Belmont or a Preakness, and you're like, oh, that was a good price. Oh, yeah, I remember him. He kind of ran that good race, and I discarded that. So, yeah, I'm with you. I'm not sold for the Derby as a winner or any Triple Crown race, but yeah, keeping an eye on that horse. I like that. Let's talk about a horse that certainly has fallen out of favor with me for this next one. Rodriguez, tell me, a better pass for you.
Yeah, it's got to be a pass at this point. And look, I think Rodriguez, he tried Stakes Company 2 races back for the first time against Citizen Bull, and it was kind of a weird race. And you're kind of like, well, he's kind of young, and maybe he'll move forward off of that effort. He shows up here against Barnes and against Journalism, obviously in the San Felipe. and they just kind of broke his heart. I feel like, Ryan, he was kind of running up there with them. They asked Barnes to kind of kick away from him at the top of the stretch, and he just blew him out. And then journalism just blew right by him. And I think Rodriguez was just kind of left looking like, what just happened? Where the hell am I right now? Type of situation. Look, he's not for me for the Derby. He's not for me in any kind of race until we see him kind of put it all together. The maiden race was really good, and we talked about it on this show back in January, but after that, I haven't seen enough.
I'm with you on that. I'm really torn about one thing on him, Aaron. I feel like he wants to be a horse on the lead. And when you get Baffert, he sort of does this thing where he sort of decides who's going to the front, and there's a lot of negotiating. We're all aware of it at this point, right, Aaron? Fair to say, you know what I'm talking about. I would love to see him get his chance to just be on the front end. Do I still see him as a Derby winner? No, at this minute, I'm with you. But man, and there's no excuses there. He's clearly not winning but I just feel like I don't think that's the way he wants to run, and it's definitely a disappointment. One more.
I don't think you're wrong. I don't think you're wrong by that. I think it's odd that they haven't put him on the lead in one of those two races. Yeah.
Yeah. But the other horse we have to talk about, of course, Burnham Square for you. Bet or pass?
I don't really know what happened. He was not good in this race at all. He had to be just maybe bounced off a big time effort in his last start. But yeah, Burnham Square for me, it's another pass. He's got to show me a lot more in his last prep race. I kind of was high on him, not high, but getting to be a little bit more anxious to bet him in a bigger race after that Holy Bull. But then the Fountain of Youth, it wasn't very good, Ryan. He was just lackluster in that race.
Absolutely. I love the connections, love the story, love the horse. I'm just not confident enough betting him future going forward in the Derby, especially as the competition gets stiffer. So, all right, that's better pass for you guys. When we get back, we're going to have everyone's favorite segment, Swiping with My Sister, including whether she swiped left or right on River Thames. Stay tuned after the break. Hey guys, welcome back. Okay, this is the best segment on the show for a lot of you guys out there. It is called
Swiping with My Sister.
Here's how it works. So my sister is a champion equestrian rider. She's represented the United States. She's been on the back of horses since she was 11 months old. She doesn't pay an iota of attention to horse racing, but she studied horses her whole life. I showed my sister 4 pictures, 4 Kentucky Derby hopefuls, multiple pictures of them, by the way, guys. And just based on looks, just like online dating, you know how this goes, she's going to be swiping left or right for the Kentucky Derby. If she swipes left, the horse left her unimpressed. If she swipes right, she thinks it has the right stuff to be a contender. She has tons of great insight. And so today, 3 of these horses are going to be in the upcoming Tampa Bay Derby, which is a Kentucky Derby win in your in prep. The other one's River Thames. We're going to get to all of that. Let's start off with a big name, Aaron, in the Tampa Bay Derby, Owen Almighty. Did my sister swipe left or right on this horse for the Kentucky Derby?
Oh man, this is a good one to start off with. Yeah, we'll talk about him here in a minute. I'm going to say she swiped right on Owen Almighty.
All right, let's take a look.
Looks like he's got a lot of heart. Very pretty horse. Way too small. Interestingly enough, just based on what I've told you guys, he does have a big stride, but it's a big stride for a small horse. So I think that if he wanted to take a long shot, I would see him 5th on the board. And I just wouldn't put any more into it. I would swipe left.
Aaron, hot take there because, big stride for a little horse. You don't feel this horse is the Kentucky Derby winner yourself, though, do you, Aaron?
Yeah, I just kind of thought it's funny because she talks about long stride and stuff like that a lot. And I thought, man, that's a really good picture of a really long stride, not thinking that he does kind of look small in that picture as well. So I'm going to say this. I did get it wrong, but I feel like we were kind of on the same wavelength with that one because when she was explaining it, I was like, yeah, that does make a little bit of sense. I actually think Owen Almighty is a really nice horse. I don't think he's the Kentucky Derby winner, but I do think the other thing, he's a smaller horse. Maybe he can't get the distance. I felt like that with him for a while as well. So I'm not disappointed in my pick there. I thought I did okay.
No, and again, she's saying he's got a lot of heart, and those sometimes hit the board like Practical Joke. Remember him years ago? Didn't necessarily want to go the Derby distance, 5th. I'm not comparing. I'm just saying sometimes those guys with heart can get up there. All right, the next horse is a very interesting one. Hill Road. Did my sister swipe left or right on Hill Road for the Kentucky Derby?
boy, you're right. This is a very interesting horse. Going to run this weekend as well. I'm going to go with Right. I think that's a beautiful picture of this horse. That looks like a beautiful horse. So I'm going to go Right on Hill Road.
Let's take a look.
He is so strikingly beautiful that, like, on the one hand, I think it's possible that they throw him in and he, surprises people. He looks like the type of horse that could really, shock you and win in the long distance. He's got a beautiful stride, but I again, based off of this picture, I like him enough to swipe right, but I can't 100% tell. He does look a little bit footsore in this picture, just based off of how he's carrying his butt. So I can't say indefinitely, but I would, if he goes in a race, I'd put money on him to hit the board.
Wow.
I want your take on that, Aaron. Talk to me on what you hear there.
This is why I love this segment. It's always kind of something new that's interesting. And yeah, that is very interesting. What she said there. I feel like she was like overly impressed with the look and the stride. And then, she kind of was trying to look in a little bit harder to some of the, maybe some physical issues that the horse might have that kind of, kept her from being all in on this horse. So that was good. I love that. I was like, man, it looks like a beautiful horse. And then immediately she said that as well. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I might be learning, which is what we're supposed to do in this segment. Right. So it'll be interesting. He's running this weekend, so we'll see what he does.
Yeah, and interesting. I showed her these pictures. He went on the shelf. Maybe what she was picking up, he did have a foot sore issue there.
Dude,
so,
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, he did.
So it's an interesting thing with him. A good-looking horse. We're going to talk about him more. Let's go to number 3 here, Filoso. He's running in the Tampa Bay Derby as well. Left or right for my sister?
What a nice picture of this horse. I'm going to go left on Filoso.
Let's take a look.
I would swipe left on this one. He's kind of underwhelming. I think he's pretty. But I don't see him making the board or really getting anything in there. I think he's cute, but he doesn't have a very big stride, and he kind of looks a little underwhelming.
Yeah, you nailed it, Aaron. Not much.
Dude, I've heard that my whole life. She's cute and all, but it's a little underwhelming. Yeah, that was great, man. That was fantastic. I love that.
We just hope no one at the Filoso barn shows him this clip. We don't want to hurt him. You know what I mean? Looks aren't everything. Okay, let's go to our fourth.
That's my favorite one yet.
All right, River Thames ran this weekend. Let's talk about it, Aaron. Left or right on this horse for my sister?
Oh man, I think he's a really beautiful horse. I think he's more than just cute, Ryan. So I'm gonna go right. We'll see what happens. I think right for this one.
Okay, let's see.
I think I would swipe left and right. I think if somebody just put him in the Derby at Bill Mott, I think he could win. I just don't see this horse winning all 3. So if he just goes or whatever in just one race, I think he has the potential, because he looks like, he carries himself so well. He's very, very balanced on both the front and the back. So I would not cut this guy out. I will say I just don't think this horse has what it takes to win all 3 or 3 in general. I think 1, he could potentially pull it off.
Interesting take there. And, I think Jennifer's just looking at these pictures, right? She can't tell. Yeah. And more than that, gorgeous horse. Aaron, if you were going to run this horse in one race, which of the 3 Triple Crown races would it be for you?
Well, it's the Preakness for me, because I know what his pedigree looks like, and I've seen him run a little bit longer distances, and it hasn't, I don't know, I didn't think he was that great. But yeah, it's interesting that just looking at the physical features of him, she thinks he could go longer, but I think the Preakness is the race for him.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's a pass for me on a Derby or a Belmont. I think Preakness is his limit, but a super gorgeous horse. And I actually think we could hear from him when he finds the right distance, Aaron. I just don't think he wants to go this far. All right, that was swiping with my sister. When we get back, let's talk more about this week's Kentucky Derby prep, the Tampa Bay Derby. We've got free picks for you. Let's help you cash. See you on the other side. All right, guys, welcome back. Saturday, race 11 at Tampa Bay Downs is the running of the Tampa Bay Derby. This is a win and you're in prep for the Kentucky Derby. A field of 7 lines up. Aaron, this is a very exciting race to me. There is a bunch of horses here who have tons of promise, maybe some question marks about distance, maybe question marks about one race. Was that a real race or a fake race? I'm really excited to see how this plays out because someone could really make a name for themselves on the Derby trail this year with a big win. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's another one of these races that could go either way. We might sit here Saturday evening and say, I don't know. I don't know if these horses are any good or not, or we may sit here and go, look, one or two of these really stepped up and maybe they're a little bit better than what we thought. Maybe they can be a superfecta type of Derby horse or even the winner. So it's an exciting race. You've got, horses coming back off layoffs. You got horses trying to rebound for maybe poor efforts. It's only a field of 7, but I think every horse does have a little bit of interesting kind of thing that we want to see and want to see how it unfolds in this race.
There's a lot of horses with chances here. For me, Aaron, it came down to 4 horses. They might not be the same for you, but I'll tell you who I liked. Owen Almighty, Chancer McPatrick, Hill Road, and Patch Adams. Those were my big 4. Was that the same for you?
Unfortunately, yes. And I don't say that because they're yours as well. I just say that because it feels like those are the 4, and then the other 3 are kind of unrealistic. And so I think the betting is going to show that. But yes, I think Owen Almighty, Chancer McPatrick, Hill Road, Patch Adams, we can poke holes in all of them, but they're also the 4 most likely winners of the race for sure.
So here's the deal, Aaron. Let's just go through them one by one. Owen Almighty, what do you like about this horse?
I like that he's been really good at Tampa Bay Downs. He's had 2 races here at Tampa Bay Downs this year. The problem is, I say he's been really good. He hasn't officially won either one of them because he did cross the wire first in the Pasco Stakes, his first race of the year, but he got disqualified. He interfered with another horse. It probably was the right call. Even though he was clearly the best horse in the race, he did kind of interfere and they had to take him down. Last time out, he loses to Sam F. Davis by a half length. But man, he ran really well. And I just kind of felt like, this horse has ran great over here 2 races in a row. Crossed the wire first, but got disqualified and then just barely lost in the last race. Like, he's been a tough luck horse this year, but he's pretty darn solid. I like him quite a bit.
Well, to me, Aaron, he's the bar in this race. You've got to beat him. Honestly, that's how I viewed it. I kept coming back to him. I was more impressed. Same page. Great to hear that. I worry about a few things with this horse. I love that he loves Tampa. He tries so hard. I feel like you put your money down, you're going to get a good effort from him. No complaints there. That's my feeling on the horse. I worry he maxed out on distance, Aaron. I really do. Because here was my concern. It looked to me in his last race, John Hancock, he passed that horse. And I know John Hancock's a nice horse. But I do wonder if part of the reason John Hancock was able to come back and pass him again was he hit his limit on the distance. Part of it too, John Hancock kind of took the race from him and ran his thing. But I just wonder. So for me, I do think there's a chance he's beatable. And if when you're looking around for options, let's talk about the other 3. Chancer McPatrick is like the big name coming into this race as far as he is a runner-up in the Eclipse Awards for Champion 2-year-old. You get Flavian Pratt, you get Chad Brown. I can draw a line through his race at Del Mar. Look, he was put on the shelf. He had a quarter crack. He had a chip taken out of an ankle, but he has a lot to prove, Aaron. I am not sold fully that he wants to go 2 turns.
Yeah, I don't want to play him at what I think will be a short price. I love this horse, and you know that, and I'll tell the people, I love this horse. I bet him on debut at Saratoga. He was way back in the back. I was so mad at myself, and then he came roaring and got the job done and won. I bet him again in the hopeful at Saratoga, and he won again coming from behind. He's just a fun horse. His race last time out in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile was not very good. There's no way around it. His stablemate, we'll talk about him in just a second. He did close on a speed favoring track and get up to get 3rd, where Chancer McPatrick was kind of nowhere to be found in that race. That has me a little bit worried. I want to see one from him going this distance before I back him at a short price.
I'm with you. Hill Road, another thing that is very interesting in this race is like Chad Brown entering these 2. I almost wonder if this is his insurance plan. He really intrigues me. That horse's juvenile was so impressive. And if you talk about, the juvenile hasn't come back to be the most earth-shattering, his race was a race all itself. He came against the bias that day. He honestly could be a nice horse, Aaron. I'm liking him a lot.
When they were talking about bringing this horse over, I thought it was for the turf like everybody else. I thought they were going to run in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile turf because he's a turf horse. He had been on 2 turf races overseas. They entered him in the juvenile on the dirt, and I was like, whatever. I can't. What am I going to do with this horse? You're right. He was way back, and he closed up for 3rd. The only one to do any running from the back was him. Now Chad Brown takes over the training, so they kept him here in the United States to try to make a run at the Derby. I would not be shocked if this horse runs 7th. I wouldn't be shocked if this horse wins. I'm so on the fence on what to do with him, but he's got I mean, he showed a lot of talent, but can he do it again over the dirt? I'm not quite sure. The horse is, the bottom side of the pedigree kind of says all turf. So we'll see what happens. This is going to be very interesting. He's a all or nothing type for me.
I'm with you. And so because those two horses also to me seem behind the eight ball, I wound up on Patch Adams. I wasn't fully feeling Owen Almighty enough. I wasn't sure about the Chad Brown horses. And I'm not totally feeling Patch Adams here, if I can be honest, Aaron. But I landed on him for a few reasons I'll run through really quick. I'm torn on this horse. The one race he ran was so electric. The next race he ran was disappointing. But here's the thing. In his last race, the Southwest, he wound up with an 89 buyer. You know, the Rebel Stakes, when it was won recently, it was Cole Battle getting a 91. I mean, so his fourth there is right there. Maybe he just threw in a clunker. Maybe he bounced off a massive race. You don't get Pratt, but that's understandable because honestly, Chad Brown's going to be massive at Saratoga this year. You're not going to jump off of a grade one winner in Chancer McPatrick. I still don't love the confidence level here to put him in this race, Patch Adams. I would love to see him if you really felt this was your biggest piece. Louisiana Derby, all those concern me. But I feel I need to try to beat Owen Almighty because I'm just not like totally sold on him for the distance. And I'm going to go Patch Adams, but I won't be shocked. I feel like you got to box those four, really, honestly, Aaron. Nothing would shock me here.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to box them because of the short prices. That's the problem with the race. You kind of got to take a stand and then play three horses underneath if you want to go that way and get them all involved. I picked Owen Almighty on top because I looked at this race and said, if John Hancock was in the race, would I pick him? The answer was yes. This horse was only beaten a half. I agree. I don't know if he can get the distance or not, Ryan, but I'm going to go number one, Owen Almighty. I do like number 7, Patch Adams in second.
I agree with you there, Aaron. And listen, we're going to talk about distances coming up. On the other side of this break, I speak with someone you're not going to want to miss, a pedigree expert. We're going to talk about distances for the biggest players on the Derby Trail. Stay tuned. See you on the other side. All right, guys, welcome back. I'm so excited for you guys to get to meet someone I consider a genius when it comes to pedigrees. We'll get into it in this exclusive interview with Ryan Campbell of Risen Storm Thoroughbreds. Aaron, pedigrees are such an interesting thing. This time of year, everyone wants to know whether my horse can get the distance. So I reached out to someone who I consider a master, and we're going to be talking about 3 of the biggest names. And when we come back after the break, Aaron and I are going to discuss and dissect everything he talks about. So you're not going to want to miss it. Here we go. Let's take a look. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It's Derby time, and the question on everyone's mind is, can my horse get 1.25 miles, the Kentucky Derby distance? The best way to do that is to look at pedigrees. So today we have a special guest on our show, a man who I consider to be a pedigree expert, Ryan Campbell of Risen Storm Thoroughbreds. He stands Belmont Stakes winner Taprit, Kentucky Derby runner-up Icebox, and Big Play Sports new stallion, graded stakes place son of Not This Time, In Due Time. He's been in the horse racing industry for 20 years. Ryan, welcome to the show. Good to have you here today.
Hey, thanks. Great to be here tonight.
Absolutely. And look, before we start getting into what we saw this weekend, pedigrees, Ryan, what's your take on this? Are they always an indicator of if you can get a distance?
The pedigree is more of another tool in your toolbox. Just there are horses that are going to outperform their pedigree, but that's not as many as you would think. So if you're trying to figure out if your horse is going to go the distance of the 1.25 miles, you can look deep into the female family pedigree to try to figure that out.
That totally makes sense. Well, obviously at this time of year when everyone's trying to figure out who they should bet, they look at these horses and sometimes they don't know what they're reading or not. And this weekend we saw some incredible performances. I thought we would start with the San Felipe and Journalism, who is the horse on everyone's mind right now. What do you think when you see his pedigree? Can he get the 1.25 miles distance?
The first thing that I want to look at with Journalism is that he's by Curlin. Curlin himself is the number 2 stallion currently standing when it comes to average max distance wins, which Curlin's average max distance is over 1 mile, where if you have a stallion who is typically their average max distance is in that 6 furlong range, most likely that progeny is never going to get that 1.25 mile distance. So by looking at Curlin, and he has the potential of throwing those long distance type horses, and then we'll look into the female family of of journalism himself. Nice thing about journalism, his damn Moppetism is by Uncle Mo. Uncle Mo is definitely a distance sire, but she herself was second in a grade 2 going a mile. She was third in a grade 3 going a mile and a 16th. She was fifth in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, and she was also third in 2 mile and an 1/8 graded stakes races. So, I mean, you're seeing with the first dam, that first dam is liking that route distance. The second dam, Pepe Rafaela, she herself won her maiden special weight at a mile and a 16th. And then she also produced half siblings to the first dam that are also route horses, and ended up in the same family is Songster, which is a multiple graded stakes sprinter. But that's farther enough back in the pedigree that we see under the first 2 dams, we have horses that are preferring the route distance.
Wow, that's very interesting. So right off the bat here, you look at this pedigree, and in your opinion, going back that far, we're seeing the 1.25 miles not being a problem for journalism. Would that be fair to say?
For journalism, being by Curlin, who also performed well at a Belmont Stakes distance, I would say journalism actually has the capability of not only doing the 1.25 miles, but also the 1.5 miles, which if we were going to have a 1.5 miles this year in our Triple Crown, which we're not because it's at Saratoga, would fit very well into that Triple Crown distance type of horse.
Now, on the other side of this weekend, Ryan, what we saw was Barnes was facing him. He was the Kentucky Derby future favorite coming into the race. And the question on a lot of people's mind actually does have to do with pedigree. They're wondering, is journalism just the superior horse, or could it be that Barnes' pedigree caught up to him? Because there's questions about it. What do you see when you look at Barnes? Could he get the 1.25 miles?
Actually, going into the race, I didn't think he'd even get the distance of that race. We look at Into Mischief, and yes, Into Mischief does have the lines, last year through Golden Sense, you got Mystic Dan, you've got Authentic and Mandaloon that have gotten the 1.25 miles distance. But Into Mischief himself is only the 13th highest on the max average distance of races won, and that's not even over a mile. It's in the 7 furlong range. But if you look at Barnes's first dam, she's by American Pharoah, but she didn't really perform on the track, so we kind of have to throw her out when we're looking for whether a horse can get a distance or not. We look at the second dam, AP Dream, which is the full sister to Majestic Warrior, who he himself couldn't stretch out and be successful. And AP Dream herself, when she went a mile and a 16th, she came up empty in her non-2. She finished third in 2 mile races and actually won at 6.5 furlongs. So the second dam's not showing that she is of that route distance, and neither are any of the half siblings to the first dam. So from a standpoint of can Barnes make the 1.25 miles, he would have to well outperform his female family to be able to get that 1.25 miles distance. I think he would probably be better for a Pat Day mile on Derby Day. And if he could get out on the lead of the Preakness and do a catch me if you can, he could probably, possibly hold on for that 1 3/16 of the Preakness. But I don't believe he could get the 1.25 miles or 1.5 miles of a Belmont Stakes.
This is fascinating because when you were talking about their max distances as sires, you were saying that Curlin is the second best distance sire right now, right?
Right.
And Into Mischief is 13th. What's interesting is Sovereignty won over in Florida, the Fountain of Youth, and his sire is Into Mischief. So they have the same sire, these two horses, Sovereignty and Barnes. Is Sovereignty's pedigree a concern for you going 1.25 miles?
See, now Sovereignty, I think, can run all day. I think Sovereignty actually could get the 1.5 miles distance. If we look at Sovereignty's first dam, her name is Crowned. She was unraced, but if you look at her second dam, which is Mushka herself was second in the Ladies Classic, was beaten by Life is Sweet. So, there she's already in that route distance. She was first in 1 3/8 on the turf. She was first in a grade 2 going 1 1/8 miles, which for a filly or mare, 1 1/8 miles is basically our equivalence to the 1 1/4 for the boys. She also produced half siblings to Crown, the first dam of Sovereignty, that run that same route distance. So from a standpoint of female family and what it has produced, that female family in the first 2 generations is producing those route horses. So add that, I think that's the distance boost that End of Mischief needs to be able to get those Kentucky Derby distance, Breeders' Cup Classic distance type horses. But there's one thing that I don't like about Sovereignty is the fact that he comes from way, way back. And in a Derby field of 20, when you're running against 19 other horses, coming from way, way back has never really been successful because there's just too much traffic when you get yourself at the back of the field trying to come up through 19 other horses to be able to get to cross the finish line first. So that would be my trouble with Sovereignty in the Derby.
And you would know that firsthand. I mean, every day on your farm is a horse who was the runner-up in the Kentucky Derby named Icebox. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, Icebox is actually listed by most people as the most hard luck Derby that has ever been ran. He came from 19th coming into the stretch and actually was stopped 3 different times and still was really close to catching Super Saver at the end of the Derby. But when you're running against 19 other horses, you have to have the perfect trip, the perfect holes open up. Even Sierra Leone, with his own problems that he created, even above that, coming from behind is really, really hard in the Derby. You want to be mid-pack or better to increase your chances in the Kentucky Derby.
That's fascinating, Ryan. So there you have it. It's not just about your pedigree. Even if you can get the distance, running style as well matters. Ryan, it's fantastic to hear this. So Sovereignty's a yes for you. Journalism's a yes for you for getting the distance, and Barnes is, you're saying Pat Day Mile, Preakness kind. And that's what's so great about it, guys. We're going to have Ryan on more, learning all these things as we get down the road there, because you also have some real hot takes on a few others we've talked about behind the scenes. Ryan, thank you again for being on here today. Again, go check him out. I love his TikToks at CampbellX29, and check him out at Risen Storm Thoroughbreds. He's great, Ryan. Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, guys, welcome back. Wow, what an interview. Aaron, what were your takeaways from hearing this guy talk?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I enjoyed that immensely. And I think the thing that I like the most about it is we're hearing all kinds of opinions on Barnes. Really, is kind of that horse where it's like, oh, he's great. What are you talking about? No, he's a sprinter. And he just basically laid out fact after fact after fact. There wasn't any opinion involved in this. And he basically said, look, here's what the family has done. Here's what he's going to have to do to outrun all this stuff that I've laid out for you. And he basically said, hey, he could do it, but this is what he's going to have to overcome. And I thought that was the fascinating part of the interview.
I 1,000% agree with you. On the other side of that comes journalism, a horse that you can't poke a hole in. And Aaron, here's what's scary about journalism. You match up his pedigree, his running style, and his trainer. We are really talking about a freaky, freaky, freaky kind of horse for the Triple Crown Trail. It's like that's most of the things you need there. How excited are you after hearing that?
That was super, super exciting to kind of hear him go over that. I think that's kind of the one that everybody assumed they knew he could do it, but it was nice to get that kind of that confirmation from a guy that really absolutely knows his pedigree stuff. So yeah, it was great to hear him kind of break that down and break down just why, this horse is going to be really, really should be good on that first Saturday in May. You touched on it. The trainer obviously is very good. He won the Preakness. I think the running style is a big part of this too. When you think of a Sovereignty, another horse he talked about, he does come from way out of it. Journalism comes from off the pace, but I feel like he doesn't have to be so far back. I think he can kind of sit mid-pack. So that was exciting to watch. I think everybody that watched that horse, whether you love him for the Derby or you think, oh, maybe not, I don't know yet. I do think you watch him and then you hear what the pedigree expert says. And it's like, yeah, he's going to be tough. He's going to be tough to beat on the first Saturday, May. Let's hope he stays healthy because he really checks all the boxes.
Absolutely. And it is interesting even there when you hear him talking about Sovereignty and what you just mentioned, which is running styles. And that's what's great about it is some people just say, oh, his pedigree can't get the distance. Well, can his running style match with his pedigree? Even if it can, how's the trainer doing for the classics? What's really scary is Michael McCarthy he's just such a master. That's what I'm seeing here, Aaron. I mean, taking on Bob Baffert and what he just did, that is extraordinary. That horse journalism to me, Aaron, well, we can talk about it more taking a look at our list because as you're going to see in a second here, when we talk about what we've just seen, we're both in agreement that that is the number one horse for the Kentucky Derby as it stands today. Citizen Bull second, and those two are going to meet in the Santa Anita Derby. Sovereignty winds up third for both of us. And Barnes, look, here he is in fourth, but like, you didn't fall off completely. To me, he's an interesting horse, because imagine without journalism what we would be saying about Barnes today, Aaron.
Yeah. And I think, again, he was a very facts driven. Here's the pedigree. And I don't think Barnes can do a type of thing based on the pedigree, the information that he laid out. The one kind of, and I would not argue with that because he just laid out facts. You can't argue with facts, right? But the one thing I would say to counter that is Barnes has Bob Baffert. And when you have Bob Baffert, sometimes all those other factors kind of equal out. Hey, this horse is bred to go a mile and a quarter, but this horse has Bob Baffert, and this horse has speed, and he can, his training methods, however you kind of want to phrase that, he can get horses to do things maybe they don't want to do sometimes. So that's the thing with him. He showed a lot of ability, a lot of talent. And look, what happens if we look up first Saturday in May and Barnes is loose on the lead and he's in front and he just ran a 48 half mile? Are we looking around going, is anybody going to catch that horse? Probably we'll be saying that, even though maybe his pedigree isn't bred for the Derby there, but he's exciting. I'm not totally throwing him out. I know a lot of people saying, oh, he's a sprinter, I'm not worried about it. I'm not sure about that. I still think there's a little bit left to be seen with Barnes. He's going to stretch out to a mile and eighth. That's when we'll really start to kind of find out on the track, based on what we see on the track, if he is really going to be able to do it or not.
Yeah, I mean, look, Bob Baffert, here's a guy, he came in 2 Triple Crowns. No one had done that for a long time.
Yeah.
We're talking about a guy who broke the curse of Apollo with Justify and a Triple Crown on top of that. Yes, Mage did it as well. I understand. But I'm just trying to say, to your point, Aaron, here's a guy who has the ability to just max out and do things that are just sort of not normal with horses, right? I know he has people who hate him. I know he has people who love him. And there's reasons to do that. I get it. I hear the comments coming in the section. What I'm trying to get at is, to your point, Aaron, Barnes is a horse that in Baffert's hand, you still always have to respect and take seriously. I really liked how Ryan laid that out for the Preakness, Aaron, as being the place that he thinks he'd do the best. I'm really curious, Aaron, Seize the Gray's Preakness last year was such an eye-opener for a lot of people. I wonder, do you think more trainers might start taking the Preakness more serious now after seeing what Seize the Gray did there? And that was a really, not for you. Interesting.
No, because there's no proof that that's going to happen. And I hate it, because that used to be a big time race, but right now it's just kind of the forgotten race, Ryan. So I have to answer no. I don't want to answer no. I think they should try to take that race a little bit more serious and aim for it, but not many do.
Well, on the other side of this break, we're going to talk about the reigning horse of the year, Torpedo Anna. She is back, guys. The Azeri Stakes, you're not going to want to miss it. See you on the other side. Let's help you cash. Hello, guys, and welcome back to Talkin' Track. Saturday, race 10 at Oaklawn Park is the Azeri Stakes, featuring the reigning horse of the year, Torpedo Anna, making her return. Aaron, from what I see, she towers over this field, and then it's a mess of a race underneath. Is that how you saw it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you said it. And look, if she shows up and she's halfway ready to run, she's going to beat this field. I mean, we've seen her, over the last year, how good this horse is and how much of a monster she became. She's also coming off of a little bit of a break, and I actually think that's going to be good. She had to be pretty damn tired by the end of that thing. The Breeders' Cup Distaff being the last race of a long campaign. So I think, she's coming into this race probably going to fire a pretty fresh effort. I don't know who else is going to beat her. She's going to be 1-9. Probably just a single and move on, whether, playing multis or put her on top of an exacta and try to pair her with somebody else, because I just don't think she's going to lose. This is more just a celebration that the horse of the year is back. She's kicking off her campaign. They're going to get much tougher after this for her. And they know, as we know, they're going to challenge her. They're going to take her maybe and face the boys a time or two as well. So this is a nice little kicking off point. Super excited to watch her run. Should be a walk in the park for her.
I'm with you, Aaron. I'm going Torpedo Anna on top. You know, I thought about it. I saw 3 horses for underneath. I'm going to take a swing here if I had to. Go with the longest price. That sometimes pays off. I'm going to go with number 5, Recharge, at 12 to 1 underneath. The reason I like this is she's on a 3-win streak. You get Steve Asmussen as a trainer. There are horses with better numbers, but they have not won their last races. That was interesting. I think she's beatable here. If Torpedo Anna is the horse to beat, like I see, and you see it, I think
Right.
that you got to try to hit something underneath. And if it's not that, I think the other 2 I liked were Alpine Princess and Jody's Pride. That's the number 2 and the number 3. I don't blame, honestly, guys, I'm with Aaron. This one feels like a race for the multis. You just single her. Just trying to have a little fun here if you want to know. Anything else stuck out to you from underneath, Aaron?
Yeah, you mentioned Jody's Pride, and I do think she's interesting. I think that's the one. I like Recharge in third, so we kind of sounds like we kind of flip flop second and third there. And I do think Jody's Pride's a horse that seemingly getting better. This will be the 3rd race off of a layoff. Ran really well last time out at Gulfstream in a pretty tough race that day. Mystic Lake and Emery were the 2 horses that beat Jody's Pride. They were bet heavily, and Jody's Pride was only a neck behind him. So stretching out again to a mile 16th, it's iffy. I'm not 100% sure if that's what she wants to do or not, Ryan, but I like her here to kind of run up late, hit the board, hopefully get second. I'm going to play a straight exacta 1-3. Just hope it comes in first and second, just like that. You can't box horses. You can't do anything like that here unless you're going to go against Torpedo Anna. Then you can. But if you're playing Torpedo Anna, you got to put her on top, and you got to pick your horse, whether it's Recharge that you just said or Jody's Pride. It's going to be one of those 2 that need to come in for us to cash. And look, I hope we see a good race. I hope she comes back healthy, and then we're on to bigger and better things. Probably the Apple Blossom at Oaklawn will be next.
Aaron, the first half of the year has been absolutely amazing. The second half of the year could be even better with all these older horses returning. Torpedo Anna, Sierra Leone, Fierceness, Forever Young, White Abario, Locked, Mindframe. We're in the midst of one of the most special Triple Crown trails I have ever seen. I've even talked to people who've been around watching the game longer, and they agree, going back to the 50s, this is a phenomenal year. The second half could be even better. I want to see Torpedo Anna here. I want to see her just completely dominate and win and keep going. We could be looking at one of the best years of racing in our entire lives. Let's kick it off, Torpedo Anna, in the United States here. Come back, show us what you got, and let's kick it into high gear for the rest of the season. That's our show for this week, you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Good luck to everyone betting. I'm Ryan Stillman. He's Aaron Halterman. Thank you so much for talking track with you. We will see you next week.